I know this one is near and dear to your heart. You started off talking about being a high school debater and a college debater, and we know you also were a university debate coach. So why is debate important? Why are candidate debates important in general? Before we get into why is it important for our campaign and all that, what's the benefit to democracy of candidates debating each other on a stage?
So the first thing is that like debates are really clarifying for voters. Most voters who only get to consume advertisements or a little bit of what they read in the newspaper or something like that seldom get to see candidates standing next to each other on a stage, sharing ideas, sharing values, sharing solutions. Now, there's a whole lot wrong with the way that we do political debates, but fundamentally, political debates are one of the points where most people are focused on the same political question at the same time in a way that allows them to have clarity about what their candidates believe on things. Most people are busy. You know, the average voter, the high information voter, is reading all sorts of blogs and reading all sorts of newspapers and following podcasts like this. And for the high information voter, the debate oftentimes feels like it is not getting into enough detail and it's not parsing the question finely enough. But your average working person who's got kids and school events and has jobs and family obligations and youth sports or whatever they have is not paying attention to all of that stuff. And the debate may be the one opportunity they have to see the two candidates offering their ideas next to each other. So that is the value of debates. They're good. They clarify things. They put candidates in front of each other. And even if they don't get the viewership that they once got in the golden age of television, they still get a lot of viewership for political programming, often in the middle of the week in the fall. Right. So they're really good about that. Now, one of the things that has happened through history is that candidates have been, third-party candidates, small party candidates, independent candidates have been included in debates. And when they're included in debates, people are like, I like the ideas that they have. When Ross Perot was in the debates in 1992, was that the year? In 1992, Ross Perot was in the debates, and people were like, we like this guy. And the mainstream media and the two parties were like, why do you like this guy? He is a weird, boring billionaire with charts and nonsensical solutions. People liked that. People liked that. They thought he was speaking truth to power. They thought that he was criticizing both parties. They liked the solutions that he had to offer, and they liked the perspective outside of that which the mainstream media and the two parties wanted you to hear. He did well in those debates, and very quickly, the two parties at the national level decided that that was never going to happen again, and they were never going to risk that kind of thing. So they consolidated who was able to be in the debates. They got the League of Women Voters out of it, and they created their own corporation that was there to just make sure the two of them were able to do it. And Maryland Public Television and other organizations still allowed Greens to debate as late as 2006 when Kevin Zeese, who we had mentioned before, was running for United States Senate as a Green Party candidate in the middle of the Iraq War on an anti-war platform. He got up there, he had the debate, I think that the Washington Post basically said he won that debate. Well, after that, there was no more including third-party folks in debates in Maryland. And right now, Maryland Public Television, who is a taxpayer-funded entity, has 30% of their funding from taxpayers, hosts the debate every year. In 2022, the Libertarians, the Greens, and the Working Class Party challenged that debate because it excluded all of them. It excludes them because Maryland Public Television's editorial standards say that a third-party candidate has to be polling 10% in order to be able to be on the stage for the gubernatorial election. Now, the interesting thing about this is the best third-party or independent performance since Reconstruction in Maryland was 9% by Hyman Pressman in 1966, I think.
68, maybe?
68, but the important part here is that Hyman Pressman was the sitting comptroller of the city of Baltimore. He was a real interesting guy. He was elected as a Republican, became a Democrat, but he had bipartisan support. He had name recognition, and he still only got 9%, which means that his finish would not have allowed him to qualify for a Maryland Public Television debate. So This is their standard. They get to set their own editorial standard because the Supreme Court has ruled the public television stations, even if they get public funding, are still television stations. They still have independent broadcast licenses with the FCC. So you will see all of these public television stations setting standards like Maryland's does that ensures that only Democrats and Republicans are on that stage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so we've kind of set the context, both historical, recent, contemporary history, Maryland, recent politics of the 21st century. We understand now why third-party and independent candidates have been excluded, especially over the last 15, 20 years, not for hundreds of years in this supposedly structural two-party system, but, in this increasingly constrictive two-party system in the 21st century. What would we be able to do if, say, we get ourselves invited to the debates, or they invite us out of the goodness of their hearts? What contrast would we be able to draw? Why is this a top line goal for our campaign?
Yeah. So I think that when there are two voices on the stage, every issue that gets discussed from the perspective of those two voices. So let's take, for example, the reparations bill that Wes Moore vetoed last year. Both houses of the General Assembly passed a reparations bill that would have created a commission to study reparations for enslavement and for all of the time from Reconstruction through Jim Crow in Maryland. It had the support of the Black Caucus, the largest Black caucus in the country. It passed both the House and the Senate entirely on party lines. It went to Governor Moore's desk. He waited for a while, and then he vetoed it in May. Now, that question is going to come up in a debate. And if that debate is between Wes Moore and a Republican, the Republican is going to say reparations are bad, the budget is busted, we don't owe a debt. They're going to make a whole bunch of Republican talking point arguments. Wes Moore is going to get up and say, you're wrong about that, but my way is the best way of giving reparations. I vetoed it because we don't need another study. We don't need another commission. If those are the only two voices in that debate, Wes Moore is going to sound pretty reasonable, even to people who like reparations. But if there's a third voice in that debate that is saying, actually, we are in a party that has supported reparations for 20 years. We believe that Maryland has to have a reparations policy. And we think both the Republicans are wrong and the Democrats are wrong, even if for different reasons. That entirely changes the context of what people who are watching that debate get to hear and the perspectives they get to hear. And you can play that out on all sorts of issues. You can play that out on energy policy. On energy policy, the Republicans say the corporate utilities are good, fossil fuels are good, and renewables are bad. The Democrats say we need an all-of-the-above approach to energy, where the corporations are good, the fossil fuels are good, and the renewables are good. We need a third perspective up there that says Maryland needs to transition as quickly as possible away from fossil fuels and the companies and industries that support them toward publicly owned power, democratically controlled power grid, and democratically controlled power policy, and as aggressive of a renewal policy as we can. Those having that third voice or that fourth voice or that fifth voice on the stage changes the dimensions of the debate. And when you change the dimensions of the debate, you get different answers, different solutions, and different values. And I believe that when Marylanders see us up there offering those perspectives that say both Democrats and Republicans are wrong for different reasons, and we have values and solutions that run counter to them, they will say, we want to vote for these people, which is why we are not invited to the debates. So I think having those different perspectives up there changes the nature of the debate. I also think another important thing it does is it speaks to people who don't feel spoken to by the two parties who are on the stage right now. One thing that having active and strong third-party campaigns and candidates does is it increases voter turnout, because more people see their ideas and values represented on the debate stage. They go out and vote. And all of us who are in politics should want more people to vote. And so, having more voices in the debate increases turnout in a real and significant significant and measurable way, because people will say, I wasn't going to vote for, the guy who wants to be president from the blue party or the guy who wants to be president from the red party, but we like this guy. Andy's up here. He's explaining things I believe in terms that I like, and I'm going to vote instead of not voting. That's a win. We should celebrate it. Our policy should be geared toward getting as many people the information as they can and having as many people vote as we can.
Yeah, excellent. So open debates, good for democracy, right? Public financing, good for democracy. These are things that we're talking about that are integral to the strategy of our campaign specifically, but they are good for the health of the democracy of our state and beyond our state, because others will be looking to Maryland to see what we're doing here and how this campaign is playing out, not least because one of the candidates in the general election potentially has his eye on higher office. So we understand why debates are important. Let's talk about the how, the strategy behind this, right? There are a couple different paths. And maybe, if we talk again about this in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to share a little bit more, not to tease you all at home too much, but we've got a few things cooking right now. So we're just going to talk in general terms, putting aside the kind of Margaret Flowers, like just running up on the debate and, getting dragged off by security, which we love. And, people still to this day say, like, that was badass. Like, why don't you guys do that? And it's like, oh, okay, well, Andy and I aren't like weightlifters, we have maybe if we have no other option, we'll do that. But we also have a plan A and a plan B. So like the Margaret Flowers run up on the stage, plan C, it's still in the realm of possibility, but it's a fallback after plan A and plan B. So what are the other paths besides the executives of Maryland Public Television and some of these other debate hosts wake up one morning and say, it'd be good for democracy if I invited Andy and Owen and the other candidates from the non-principal parties to participate in the debates? What are the other pathways to getting on that stage?
Yeah, so up on the screen right now, it's a petition that we have up on our website. It is a petition to get the debates open. It is simple enough. It is an opportunity for Maryland voters to tell Maryland Public Television, again, a taxpayer-funded entity that gets 1/3 of its funding from the state of Maryland's tax base, to open up the debates and allow every candidate who is on the general election ballot, which has only ever been like 5 or 6 at most. We're not talking about hundreds of people on the general election ballot. We're talking about 3, 4, 5. So the petition would tell Maryland Public Television to open up the debates and allow the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, the Working Class Party, whoever's on the general election ballot, in order to be able to participate in the debate. That's one thing. And we're collecting signatures on it. We're going to keep collecting signatures on it. This was an idea the Libertarians and Greens and Working Class Party candidates had in 2022. And we picked it up and started our campaign right away doing that. The second thing is we are organizing MPT members. So if you are watching this and you are a member of Maryland Public Television, where they get the rest of their funding from, or where they get another large chunk of their funding from, is membership subscriptions. We are asking members to write Maryland Public Television and say that you want all the candidates to be on the debate stage. There's language on our petition there that you can use in order to craft that letter. And we think it's important for members to be able to tell them to tell the station what they have to do. Look, they lost 12% of their funding when the federal government cut the funding. So this is an important year to be able to put pressure on them if you were a member of MPT. If you are a member of MPT and you're a taxpayer of Maryland and you want to see the station that you pay for include all the candidates that are on your ballot so that you get to hear those things, it's pretty easy. Go sign the petition. Go sign the letter. I think there's some other strategies that we can use. We'll get into those a little bit later. But I will just say this. The legislature controls the funding for Maryland Public Television. And so when they have a budget hearing in Annapolis, we need to be there with people and members making the case. And if we, and there's some other legislative things that could happen. We'll see what happens with that. The session starts in, I don't know, probably 60, 70 days at this point. A lot can happen between now and then. But pressure, making, and we are able to bring the pressure to bear by telling the story in as many spaces as possible, telling our allies about it, telling our friends about it, telling organizations that support us. And it's also a thing that we can tell people who are like, we can't endorse you because we're a union that represents X thousand number of people, and our members might get hurt if we endorse you. We can say, fine, support this debate bill. So I think there's a lot of, if there's a bill that comes about, or sign this petition or whatever it is, we can get them involved in this struggle. We need to use every lever that we have in order to put pressure on Maryland Public Television to change the rules that they have right now, and to do what they need to do for the people of Maryland, which is allow every candidate who is on the ballot to have their voice be heard by every Marylander.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to thread this back to the goal of public financing. If you are contributing to this campaign and we can hire staff or send out mailers to folks who are Maryland Public Television members, right? Organizing is what's going to get one way or another, whether it's inside advocacy or it's outside organizing. That is the pathway to the debates, right? It is not a closed door meeting in which we say pretty please, or we exert some kind of personal leverage that we happen to have, or financial leverage that we as individual candidates have, or our political party has. That's not it. It's organizing, both applying, the threat of members withdrawing their dues, right? I mean, members saying, hey, if you aren't doing what's right for our democracy here in Maryland, why am I contributing to your continued existence, right? That's the ultimate threat that is going to get anyone to pay attention, is the threat of boycott or divestment from their institution.
Yeah, and maybe we can sanction them too. We'll figure out how to do that. But look, at the end of the day, this is not against public television. We like public television. We are Greens. Look at us. We probably watch and consume more public television than most folks. We think that public television could benefit from expanding the scope of democracy and being a model of what good debate looks like, and allowing people to hear all the voices. When the corporations that are controlled by both of those parties control the rest of the debates, we don't expect them to be good media citizens. But we do expect public television to live up to its mission and to be a good democratic citizen and to help Marylanders make informed choices. And so I want to be very clear that this is not a critique of public television. It is asking public television to fulfill its mission and to do better at its job. And this is especially important at a time when Republicans in DC are threatening the funding of public television in a way that we've never seen before, because they believe that it is too partisan. We need to invite public television to expand its lens and view of what democracy is, and to make sure that the Marylanders who rely on that as their source for information have a means of hearing the voice of every candidate that is on the stage. So we are frustrated with public television, but we believe in its mission, and we believe that having it host valuable political debates is part of building a better and stronger democracy.
Yeah, I think that's a really helpful reframe. This is not an antagonistic organizing campaign, although there is, a material threat, but this is about the common good, right? It would be good for their ratings if they invited us on the debate stage and you're mixing it up with Wes Moore and the other candidates, and I'm mixing it up with Aruna Miller and the other candidates. It would be more interesting, and it would be better television, right?
And it'd be better for their membership. They're going to get more members if people who are independents, who are third party, people who are frustrated, people who think Maryland is on the wrong track, like the banner or like the poll that came out today said, if those people see themselves in the debate, not only are they going to be more likely to vote, but they're also going to be more likely to give MPT money, which it needs to survive in a world where Republicans are defunding everything that's public.
Right. So it's good for Maryland Public Television. It's good for democracy. It's good for Marylanders. I also think it is potentially good for the other candidates to have their positions critiqued from multiple sides, instead of just the same old zero-sum entrenched positions, boring, boiled over debates, and candidate positions, having a multi-party debate where you have to fend off critiques of your positions from multiple sides is much better training for a candidate who maybe has their eyes set on the White House or a congressional seat in Western Maryland, right? Like, if you want to become a better debater, debate with more sparring partners, right? And so I think this is, they can handle it, right? Some of the folks, some of the legislators, other folks we've been talking to are like, yeah, Wes can handle a couple more people on the debate stage, right? This is not a totally subversive thing. This is good for everyone to have more voices, have our civics be more fully fulfilled and rounded out, and have more perspectives represented on the stage. This isn't like a green partisan who put us on the stage for our own benefit. This is really a common good organizing campaign that we're engaged with here.
And it is a thing that I think you made this point at the beginning. It's a thing that has happened in the past, and it worked well. People remember Ross Perot and that debate way more than they remember Bill Clinton or who was at that time, Dole. I don't remember. Which one was that one?
Bush, I think it was Bush 1, right?
Bush 1, yeah. But I mean, like I'm saying, I remember Ross Perot. I don't remember who the other folks were. And I think there's a lot of people who see themselves in that, and a lot of people who would watch a debate that MPT put on that had us on the stage, as well as the Libertarians and the Working Class Party and the Democrats and the Republicans. And the last thing I'll say about this is sometimes they will say, well, we only want candidates who can win on the stage. And in 2022, when they refused to put the Green and the Libertarian and the Working Class Party on, they put Dan Cox on the stage. And Dan Cox is like the biggest loser to run for governor in Maryland in my lifetime. Dan Cox lost to Wes Moore so badly that the Libertarian was closer to Dan Cox than Dan Cox was to Wes Moore, right? Like, if you're going to put a loser like Dan Cox on the stage, then you should let everybody on the stage, because it's going to be more interesting than hearing that loser get his ass kicked by Wes Moore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, redefining winning, redefining losing, and having more people on the debate stage. So great. So these are a couple of our big goals here: public campaign financing and participation in the debates, especially the debates that are subsidized by Maryland taxpayers.